Yeah, we are live. Hello, roomers. Hello, Zoomers. How are we all doing today? Welcome to not week 3. This is like week 5. That is not the screen. You're switching to the laptop. Signal detected. I'm going to pause the recording. Again. Okay, hello. We resolved some technical difficulties. Hello, people in the room. Hello, people on Zoom. We are going over Crypto 2 today. So that is not me presenting. This is just me giving announcements. That is the people presenting: Anakin, Hassam, Husnain, Nebu, and Brad helped make the meeting, but I don't think he's here. So we are going to get started. So there's a flag. SIGPwny numbers are hard, and there's our relevant XKCD for this meeting. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to get that. It's again, SIGPwny numbers are hard. So make sure to go fill that out. And you know, it's midterm season, so I hope everyone's doing well with midterms. Good luck to everyone who has to take 374 tomorrow, I think it is. Good luck to anyone who has midterms in this upcoming week. So, all right, that was enough. Again, it's SIGPwny numbers are hard. If someone can paste that in chat, that would be great. So, announcements, and then I am out of here. Scoreboard should be properly reset. Let me know if no, please. Thank you. We have a Minecraft server now for the rest of the semester. It's mc.sigpwny.club. We're going to set it up so that to be on the server and to do things, you have to verify with Discord. So that'll be really easy. We'll have that set up shortly. Then Thursday meeting changed again. Oops. So we're not going to have time to set up a really great reversing meeting because people were busy. So we're going to run a really, really cool meeting called the Offset. We'll more about that at the end. And then lastly, CTFD reskin. We got a project. If you are interested in doing some web dev stuff, easy resume filler. We just need CTFD to be reskinned with our new logo, our new branding, and maybe make it dark mode. If you can make it dark mode, that would be pretty cool. So that is me. That's all my announcements. That's all the club's announcements. Is that right off? All right, let's go. Whoever's up, go.
So we're going to give a bunch of talks for like 30, 40 minutes. But before we do that, I want everybody to start installing some tools. All these links are in Discord. Basically, crypto uses a lot of tools, like 6 or 7. Instead of trying to manage those between Windows, Mac, and Linux, we encourage you to get Docker and use something called the CryptoHack Docker container, which has all the tools you want. Basically, if you don't have Docker installed yet, which you probably don't, that first link there, which is also in the Discord, will get it to you. And then the second link has these 2 commands. Those are also in the GitHub link there. Those will install the CryptoHack container. And basically what that lets you do is it gets all of the tools that you need to do the challenges that we have today and the challenges to see in future CTFs right on your computer without just those 2 lines of code. And then the third thing there is something called RSA CTF tool. That is just a tool that I think is super, super useful, and it doesn't come with the CryptoHack container. So you probably won't need that for today, but just for future reference, that is probably one of the most useful crypto tools for solving RSA challenges in CTFs. I'll walk around helping people installing these, but I would recommend you do those like while we're talking.
Cool. So, wait, is the next slide? How do I do the next slide? The next slide? Okay, we got next slide. So if you recall from Thursday, we briefly mentioned AES is like this fancy XOR, right? Basically, it's we talked about like symmetric ciphers where we had a key that encrypts a plain text to get a ciphertext, and to get from the ciphertext back to the plain text, you use the same key, right? So AES you can kind of think of as like I have a picture of a blender up here that just kind of mixes up your message, and in like the main block of AES, it takes in 16 bytes and it returns 16 bytes. So you can see on the right, there's some example Python code that actually illustrates this. So you can see it. I import the module, with a certain key, bytes long, just because of how the internals work. And you can see that I encrypt the string, and then when I decrypt it, you get the same output, right? So this is all well and good if my message is 16 bytes long. But if I want to encrypt a message that's longer than 16 bytes, how am I going to do that? So next slide. So this is going to get into something called block ciphers, right? So I think, did we mention this on Thursday?
I don't think so.
Basically, you can kind of, a block cipher is basically where you take your plain text, you break it up into blocks, and you operate on each of the blocks. So AES, for example, works on 16-byte blocks. And you can see here, the first mode that we have here is ECB. So basically, you can see from the diagram here, right? To encrypt, what you basically do is you just break up your plain text. For AES, right, you do 16-byte blocks, right? So you break that up into 16-byte chunks. You put it into the blender that it, like the AES, instead of like blender, right? You put it in and you just put it out, right? Can anyone see like a problem with this?
If the final part is not.
So you break up your plain text into 16-byte blocks, then you just plug it in. So like your first block, right? You put it in, your ciphertext, the first block, second block, you put it out. So like the diagram shows.
What was the question? Like that, multiple 60 bytes.
Oh,
what
the
you
multiple, then you pad it. Then you pad it with like 0 bytes. Or there's padding schemes that you
I can
use.
talk about that later.
Yeah, there are certain padding schemes that you can use, and actually there are vulnerabilities with certain padding schemes. But for this question, let's just assume it's a multiple of the block size. To my zoomers as well, can anyone see like a potential problem with this? Hint the picture. Hint the pony is encrypted with ECB.
So it's like the same thing. After
Why the hell are they in a different building? What are these guys doing?
Yeah, exactly, right? So this, actually like, last time, encrypted the SIGPwny logo with AES ECB, right? So you can see that when you encrypt something, right, you want it to be, you want the output to look as random as possible, right? Based on your input text, right? So you can see here when you encrypt with ECB, that doesn't look random at all. You can clearly see remnants of your input in your output, right? That's clearly a problem. So this is why it's encouraged not to use ECB when you're encrypting with AES. So how can we remedy this? Next slide. So we can use another mode of encryption. So this is called CBC or Cipher blockchaining. And so we have our old friend XOR again. So basically what we have here is so this is our first block here, okay? And we go through, we have this thing called our initialization vector, okay? And basically what we do is we encrypt our first block and it kind of propagates to our next block. So the encryption kind of propagates to the next blocks. So it kind of like it propagates forward. So you can see here the pony logo encrypted with CBC. Like you can't really see this pony logo anymore, right? So with this, like encrypting like this, you add more like randomness to your cipher text. That way it becomes more secure. There are still vulnerabilities that you with this mode of encryption that maybe Nebu can talk about if you ask him, or you can ask us later. But generally, this is considered more secure than ECB because of the kind of it's mixing around things more. It's a general idea. Yeah, sure.
For the insulation practice, we don't also like to
Yeah, so generally you initialize it to be random bytes. Yeah.
You made your, is it possible to make your
You could. Would it be bad?
It won't matter.
Typically, it doesn't matter. Typically, these are just random values. Or like you typically want to keep track of your key and initialization vector, but those are typically randomly instantiated.
So the real reason that you randomize an IV is because if I encrypt multiple plain texts, then it makes you like vulnerable to the chosen plain text attack. So you don't want to get into that. So the idea is you keep changing your IV with every encryption cycle. So,
So I think next slide, I think you're.
yeah. Oh, so just to further answer your question about what if the ciphertext isn't, the plain text isn't a multiple of 16, right? So what you do is you have a bunch of bytes left over at the end. So let's say you have 3 bytes left over, right? In those 3 bytes that are blank, you fill in literally 333, right? So when you're decrypting, you look at one of those 3s when you're scanning, and you know that you just discard the last 3 bytes. But that opens you up to another kind of attack, because now can you go to the okay, you will go hang on. Where is
Just the left arrow.
yeah, except the screen's wrong. Hmm. Can you try to figure this out? Anyway, so what will happen is that if you have an oracle that tells you whether what you gave it was a valid decryption or encryption, you can kind of just by trying to XOR a couple of things and giving it to the oracle, you can recover how much padding was done. By recovering how much padding was done, you can eventually, with some more chosen ciphertext, you can recover the whole message. So that's a really big vulnerability in CBC mode, because what ends up happening is that since the blocks are chained together, if I'm able to figure out what the last block is, I can work backwards from there and get all the way to the start. So there's another mode of AES called CTR, which you should really look into, because what that does is it doesn't chain them together. It takes the initialization vector and increments it at every block. So that is something worth knowing. Now we'll go into RSA. So I won't explain this if enough people are familiar with it. So can I get a show of hands? Like how many people know what's going on here? Okay, fine. We'll go over it. So RSA is a public key encryption algorithm. So I think Anakin explained last time how that works. But basically, the idea is that you can imagine it like having a padlock or something, right? And if I have the key, any of you can click it shut. But once it's shut, only I can open it. So it's a very important idea because basically, it doesn't matter how many people get the public key as long as your private key is secure. So this slide talks about how to generate that. So the first step is generating 2 primes P and Q. This is often the hardest part of generating keys for RSA, because often it's hard to generate large primes. It's often hard to know if large numbers are primes, and it's often hard to get that level of randomness to get a prime. Anyway, let's say you have 2 primes P and Q, multiply them together, you get N, right? Then what you compute over here, we're computing the Karamishal function. It's just the LCM of P minus 1 and P minus 1. In some places, you'll see that they don't take the LCM. It doesn't matter. It's just P minus 1 times Q minus 1. Then you choose another integer E, so that is co-prime to the quotient, right? Now, E and N together, generally everybody chooses E to be 2 raised to 16 plus 1. There's a reason for this. It has to do with Hamming weights and this and that. You don't have to worry about it. Generally, E is going to be 65537. That's 2 to the 16th plus 1. And that forms your public key tuple. So N and E is publicly distributed. Anybody can see it. Anybody can use it. In fact, also people put it up on their websites or whatever. And that's fine. Now you compute the private key. That's the modular inverse of E. And this tuple is the private key. So DP. it's very important that P and Q stay private. D, of course, but P and Q especially, because these are the factors of n. If somebody can factorize n, then RSA breaks down because of how the encryption and decryption actually happens. So this is just key generation. This is how you actually encrypt and decrypt. So this is modular exponentiation. So what you first do is Alice releases a public key like we talked about. And then let's say Bob wants to send her a message. So what he does is he takes the message, his message. If you're not familiar with encoding, the message will probably be in ASCII or Unicode or something. Bob can convert it to hex, which he can then convert to base 64. Whatever, some sort of scheme that turns whatever letters and whatever to just an integer. Take that integer, call it m, raise it to the power e mod n. And that is the ciphertext C. And Bob basically sends it over to Alice over an insecure network, whatever, it doesn't matter. And Alice, on the other end, all she has to do is compute C to the D. Now, this is often an expensive operation, C to the D, because since E is just 65537, the modular inverse is going to be, which is D, it's going to be quite a large number. So since C to the D is often expensive, for things like OpenSSL, they combine RSA and AES. So what they do is they do the AES key exchange over RSA, and all future communication is done through AES, basically. So I think that's all my slides. Oh wait, no, attacks.
Okay, before we continue, does anyone have any questions?
Oh yeah, sorry.
And the previous slide was,
Oh, D was the private key.
Gotcha.
So that's the modular inverse of E mod. Oh yeah, these are some attacks on RSA. Sorry?
Talk about D.
Sorry?
Do you want to talk about D?
D, I mean, yeah, that's the modular inverse. That's an operation you can look up. That's not e to the -1. That's an operation called modular inverse. You can play around with on Python. It's called mod in Python
I'll talk about
or
it.
pow e -1.
I'll talk about it.
I mean, like, before we continue, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, any other question?
That's, because it's a lot of information, so like, if anyone has any like questions, I mean, it's a lot of numbers and
Yeah.
Another question, so, we choose an integer key such as prime to this value, but then we say typically we're just choosing 65537. Is that, do we know that it's always co-prime to that value, or is it?
65537 is co-prime to that value because it works out to be that way, the way we've chosen it. So the reasons behind choosing E are complicated. They check things like Hamming weights and this and that. I'm not very familiar with the math, but it's a safe bet that this is what everybody uses. It's become the de facto standard.
So there's a little bit of number theory reasoning for choosing E to the 16+1, and that's because we can so I can prove we can prove that that's always going to be co-prime to the prime -1 and other prime -1, because it's power of 2.
It's a power of 2 plus 1. So no, the co-prime bit is fine, but why 65537 and not 2 raised to the 17 plus 1? That has some stuff to do with the bits and this and that, not something. But
You know, as much time.
So, what's the definition of one? What is this function?
yeah, I think she will take that. He's the number theory guy.
I'll answer that in a bit.
Okay. Anything else, anyone?
Like, it's kind of what I was like, this is like, a lot of this stuff can become kind of math heavy, so like, if you have any questions at all, feel free to like, flag one of us down, stop.
Just to add a little bit, this is really complicated, and one of the bad things about that, if you make a mistake in any one of these steps, like let's say you accidentally your user archive, you choose an E that's too small or way too big, you choose an E that's not co-prime like that, you open yourself up to a ton of attacks. One of the most common attacks that really use, it's hard to figure out if they're fine. People will accidentally use all those modality, they'll accidentally choose these keys that are not fine, which is
So we can actually go to the next slide. We do talk about one more. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that is one of the attacks. N too small. There are things like factor DB, which is just a database of factors of big numbers. D too small, E too small. For a long time, people used E is equal to 3 instead of 2 to the 16 plus 1. That there are some attacks for that. There are some attacks for small d's. For a partial key leak of D, there are some attacks. In fact, we had to do that for Seesaw. Much more interesting, I think, is and common is faulty prime generation. So to pick off what Hassam was talking about, basically the tests used for primes are probability based. So one of them is called Miller-Rabin. You have to run multiple iterations of Miller-Rabin to get a 99.99% chance that the number you end up with is a prime. Except if you don't run it 40 times, now you're in trouble. And that often happens because of lack of compute power or whatever. These tests are often expensive to run. This is one that you should be about multiple moduli dash CC. Is that challenge? It is. Right?
Yes. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's fine. Yeah. But no, that's the hard RSA one.
yeah, that's the hard RSA one. It's all right. It would have been way too hard otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anything else? Google's your best resource. Also, RSA CTF tool does exist. I'd say try not to use it if you want to learn about RSA because it does everything for you. And yep, I think that's all I have to talk about, right? Oh, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start off with kind of answering what Nathan was asking about in terms of this modular inverse, okay? So we're going to consider something called the discrete logarithm problem. So a lot of you are familiar with logarithms in math as the inverse of an exponential, okay? So if you look here, right? Like logarithm solves for the exponent, okay? So if we consider this such a list of numbers from 0 to subprime minus 1, okay? And the reason we want prime numbers is because this problem becomes harder to solve when it's primes. We want integer solutions to this problem up here. You're given A, B, and the prime, solve for X. And this leads you to this modular inverse problem, because the modular inverse is essentially just, you can get the modular inverse once you know the exponent, essentially. Or they're very closely related problems. And the reason this is hard, right, is because, like I said in the previous meeting, multiplying is easy. That's that padlock that Nebu was talking about with RSA. Multiplying two numbers is computationally cheap. There exist very fast algorithms to do it, and even just the standard algorithms to do it are extremely quick. Going the other way is really hard. This is what's called a trapdoor. Trapdoors are typically things which are easy to go in one way and not the other. So multiplying is easy to go, but factoring is really hard to do. And so we consider this, and so discrete log shows up in the root of basically all of these attacks. A lot of common RSA attacks just stem down to, hey, someone messed up somewhere and made discrete log really easy to solve. That's like, it's a kind of an oversimplification, but that's kind of what it boils down to. So yeah, so then with discrete log, okay. Now we're going to probably get into some of the hardest math in the meeting, elliptic curves, okay? So elliptic curves are curves of this form. Y squared is equal to x cubed plus ax plus b, okay? And I don't know why they're called elliptic curves, but there's a lot of really cool math you can do with these. They're very important in mathematics. And furthermore, they have some properties which lead to some very nice encryption, okay? So the standard way of dealing with elliptic curves, okay, is we consider points on a curve, and or instead of multiplying two numbers, we consider adding and multiplying points. So how do we add points? Take 2 points P and Q, draw the line between them, see where they intersect, and then reflect in the y direction. That's how you add 2 points. So if I go to the next slide, that's the math. You can kind of go through the derivation if you want. I'm not going to go through here, but that's essentially what you do. And from there, you take P and Q, and you get the coordinates of all. And then from that,
we can now consider multiplying. How do you multiply? You can either double or you can add, and you can basically multiply any numbers you want with just those two operations. So they're like, I'm not going to go into the algorithm for doubling because it's a little bit more complicated than just adding 2 points because of just how the numbers work out. But the point is, we consider just these two operations, and now we have enough to consider how to work with elliptic curves. Okay, so our discrete log problem from earlier, we now translate that to elliptic curves. Okay, so we still consider points that are mod some prime. So like, for example, we have a point x comma y, and x is mod some prime and y is mod some prime. And from there, we solve this multiplication problem. So we're given a starting point and an end point, and we want to find k, our multiplier, so that we can get from p to q. That is the elliptic curve discrete log problem. Kind of threw a lot of words there. Before I move on, anyone have any questions?
If you want to like compute k times p thing, isn't that adding like is drawing a line that reflect on the x-axis? Yeah, on the x-axis, right?
Yeah.
But if you're, for example, you want to calculate 2 times p, how can you draw a line between p and
I'll link a really good explanation. For that exact reason, doubling has a different algorithm than what I described back there. So there are ways to do it. It still ends up drawing the line, but you end up projecting the second point to a special location, and you can draw the line through that. But it's a well-defined operation. But yeah, you're right in that you can't draw a unique line between one point.
Yeah. How do you choose P and Q? Is there any special procedure?
That depends on your algorithm. Typically, P and Q are known. P will be some sort of publicly known value, and Q will be some target. And your private key, as I'll get to, will be okay. And I'll get to how this is analogous to public key private key situations. I just wanted to lay down a high overview of the math behind all this. Go for it.
Okay, so you explain how this
Yeah, you can. So if I wanted to compute, if I have p and I wanted to compute 5 times p, okay, just take for granted that we can either add points and we can double a point, okay. 5 is the same thing as 4 plus 1. So 4 is 2 squared. So what we do is take p, double it twice, and we get 4p, and then we can do 4p plus p and get 5. And this is actually kind of similar to how binary works. And you can just kind of like translate the number to binary and use that to determine if you're doubling or adding at any given point.
Just to clarify, so doing that multiplication is like fast.
Yeah, multiplying is still like you're doing the multiplication coordinate wise. You do all the multiplication on x's first, and then all the y's, and it's still just numbers. And multiplying 2 numbers is very fast. With
finding that k, or like dividing?
that's that's slow. And I'll get to the discrete log equivalent of this in a bit.
I think someone asked like how to add like a point.
Yeah.
Like 2 points that are the same. Like.
Yeah, I didn't go over that here. I can go over that. I can go over that after, but it's a bit more complicated.
Okay. Yeah. Alright. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I didn't want to. It would take up the whole slide, and I didn't want to go through the whole thing. But I just wanted to show. With adding 2 points, you can kind of see it's done, and it's easy to show visually. It's hard to show visually multiplying, like doubling a point. So
Top 2 is after.
yeah. Anyone have any more questions? I know it's a lot of math, but this is kind of the foundation of a lot of modern cryptography.
I think Bitcoin.
Uh,
Bitcoin uses it a little bit. Ethereum definitely does.
Ethereum does. I'm not sure about Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin uses a block cipher still. I think so. All right. So, like I said earlier, discrete log is hard. Okay. There's a really nice analogy which I kind of brought up last Sunday about the discrete log problem with elliptic curves, okay? Consider a game of pool, okay? And let's just say the cue ball, okay? Can anyone tell me, given the cue ball in its current position, where was the last placed before I hit it? It's possible, okay? If we assume we have a computer that can do perfect physics simulations, we can try every single possibility at every single angle at every single power. This is computationally very difficult and infeasible. So for this reason, we can kind of think of the elliptic curve problem as pool. If you can kind of visualize the point addition, it kind of jumps all over the place. Kind of like how a pool ball, when you hit it really hard, it goes all over the place. And going backwards is extremely difficult. It's possible, and the fact that it's possible is the foundation of this problem, but it's difficult. And that's where the security comes in. We have security via computational difficulty. And so if we consider this, okay, let's relate Diffie-Hellman to the elliptic curve version, okay? So what do we have with Diffie-Hellman? If you remember from last time, Alice and Bob have a shared G and a shared large prime P. Alice has some secret A, Bob has a secret B. They send each other G to the A and G to the B. And then from them, they both have G to the A to the B. Okay? And if you think about how exponentiation works, G to the A to the B is the same thing as G to the B to the A. Because exponents, we can just flip it. And because of this, they now have a common secret. So now, let's take this older version. Now with elliptic curves, again, now they share a point G, and some large prime P, okay? So we're taking our elliptic curve, right? And first off, we're only considering integer values. So if we consider the elliptic curve that was drawn earlier, that had all these decimal values in between, we only care about integers for security reasons, because it's harder to compute integer solutions. So we can kind of reduce this down to a 2D point. So each x comma y can just be represented on a 2D plane. And then when you take the mods of all of these, you can kind of fit everything into this nice square. So this square happens to be some curve, everything is mod 127. And so, yeah. And the point is that every single point lies in this plane. But if you consider look, P plus Q, I just draw all the possible points that could be on there, and I hit a point, R, in this case. So that's how it works with modulo. And you can see here, right? This is very similar to normal Diffie-Hellman, where we multiply the 2 points instead of raising the power, we multiply the points. Alice and Bob still have a secret A and a secret D. And then they send each other G times A and G times B, so these new points. And then now they both can multiply with their secret number and get G times A times B. And that is their shared secret. And then, so because of this, again, because with multiplication can be flipped. So that means we can guarantee that they have the exact same numbers. Yes.
So in this case, like what message are they trying to share?
We're considering key exchange. The
Oh.
problem is sending keys. From there, they can encrypt and decrypt messages as they need. But this solves the problem of how do Alice and Bob get each other's secret keys before.
So this one is symmetric.
It can be. This is basically just used for anything where you want a shared key. So yeah, it could be used for symmetric encryption.
And the key, sorry,
Yeah.
and the key here is
The key here would be, yeah, it would be a point.
It'd be G times A times B.
Yeah.
also, and it's the symmetric key there.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
They have it, yeah. And then there are ways you can convert this shared point into a number and then use that like normal. But yeah, just with some sort of shared script.
So in general, how big is K? How big is H1 P? Is that pretty small? Look at cool.
Yeah, they're not gonna be super large, and we'll get to, in fact, that they don't have to be super large. Because computationally, this is still a lot harder than just normal exponentiation and normal multiplication. Multiplying and adding points is a lot harder, so we can deal with still, typically, smaller secret values. They're gonna be less than P. But P doesn't have to be that large. And I'll have a really nice chart showing the relation between this and normal Diffie-Hellman.
And lastly, what is G and how is it determined ahead of time?
G is just some shared public point. It depends on your scheme. The point is that it's some shared public point. It's like G with regular Diffie-Hellman, where G is just some common number that everyone in the world knows. You know it, I know it, everyone on Zoom knows it, everyone in the room knows it. It's just, but the point is it's public. The private parts come from A and B.
So G is just a graph, and on that graph, there's a set of points.
Well, no, G is a point. I couldn't find a graphic that had G on it. So
G is a point on the elliptic curve.
Does everybody use the same elliptic curve?
Yes. Yeah, the parameters for the curve are also known.
Well,
Or well, they can be.
I mean,
You need some, both Alice and Bob at the very least you know it. Oh,
I looked it up, most key lengths are 56 bits.
and
It's small.
small, and but like it's computationally expensive, and right? Why do we care about elliptic curves? If we consider our regular RSA key sizes and elliptic curve key sizes, look at how much smaller. The security of a 15,000 bit RSA key is insane. Is basically computationally impossible to do. I think our upper bounds where we've successfully cracked some 1024 and 2048. Not even 2048. No, like we're on the fringes of like 1024. So this is insanely large, but also like it's still like a 15,000 bit number is huge, and no matter how you slice it, even multiplying is hard.
like the largest modulus that's ever been publicly cracked is 768.
Right.
And there are rumors that the NSA can crack 1,044.
Yeah,
So.
but that's like God knows.
Yeah.
But then look at how easy it is with ECC. These are equivalently secure. A 15,000 bit RSA key is cryptologically equal to 521 bit elliptic curve. But the math with this is a lot faster with the known algorithm. Reversing it is still extremely hard. In fact, reversing a 521 bit elliptic curve key is about as hard as reversing a 15,000 bit normal key. But it's a lot faster to compute. So when speed starts to matter, because no matter how, even with today's modern computers, this is still a very, like, this 15,000 bit number is very hard to still do. So we can change key size and memory size. We can shrink that and use more complicated objects like elliptic curves and gain security that way. And you see this a lot used, like for example, a lot of SSH keys can be generated with elliptic curves. I think I personally have my GitHub key generated using elliptic curves, and yeah, it's just it's used a lot. I know it's like the cutting edge of cryptography essentially because of the efficiency and key size. Anyone have questions? I have some questions. Let's see. And Nathan's got it.
I think none.
All right. How do we deal with elliptic curve cryptography? We can obviously implement it ourselves, or because it's really hard, we can use that CryptoHack Docker file that Hassam was talking about earlier, and use something called SageMath, which has extremely nice libraries for dealing with elliptic curves. What was it, 2 weekends ago with Seesaw? Yeah, I like used SageMath like all weekend to do elliptic curve stuff. And it's a really nice library, plays really well with Python. The setup instructions are kind of copied here, but again, slides will be made public and the links are on the Discord for setting this up. And then attacks. Not all curves are equal. Some curves are better than other curves. So again, like what Hassam was saying, if someone messes up the implementation of elliptic curves, then there are a lot of attacks that are possible. We can consider things like the order of a curve. So how long does it take to multiply a point until you get to 0? That's a property for each curve. We can think, again, similarly, small primes, or someone messes up and doesn't even use a prime order. That's vulnerable to a lot of attacks. Sometimes you mess up how you make your curve, and it's not even an elliptic curve. It's something which is much easier to factor. And there are a lot of other patterns. Whether like your point, the 2 points you chose are closely related, or whether the 2 factors used to generate your curve are co-prime. There's a lot of really common attacks, and really, again, Google is probably the best way to do this. It's a lot of math and a lot of reading, but a lot of these attacks are known, and they're just like ready to use algorithms out there in Python and Sage. And yeah, that's probably the best way to deal with the curves. And then in general, oh wait, hold on. I'll go back. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about setting up the CryptoHack Docker file. Like I was checking that out, and I'm pretty confused about how to use this tool.
Yeah, something. Hey, let's go. All right. Anyone else have questions before I get on how to practice all this stuff? All right, I'll do it. Cool. So how can I practice this? There's a lot of really cool places online. Like I said in the previous meeting, CryptoHack is really cool. And you can see we covered a lot of these today. AES, RSA. I mentioned Diffie-Hellman and elliptic curves. A lot of really, really good challenges out there. I pasted their Discord link. They have their own Discord, and all the people there are super helpful. If you want to ever learn more about cryptography, how to set things up, cool ideas of cryptography, how to get better at it, that's probably one of my favorite places to do it. All the people there are super sweet, and yeah, a lot of really smart people on there. And also, God, I wish I had a better screenshot for this. I have some CryptoHack challenges up there, and I have instructions on how to get the flags once you solve them. But yeah, go do the challenges. It's a way to encourage people to start doing more cryptography, because I think it's a really underappreciated area of security, because people are just like, oh, it's math, I don't want to do it. But there's a lot of really cool stuff out there, and I could probably talk for hours about it. But yeah, go do CryptoHack. It's really cool. And then go do some of the internal CTF challenges. In addition to the meeting flag, there's a hard RSA challenge using batch GCD that Husnain wrote, and then I wrote a Diffie-Hellman God challenge. And over time, we're going to try to add some more hard crypto challenges. So we'll announce those when those come out in the Discord. But yeah, I think that's about the end. Does anyone have any questions about what I talked about or what anyone else talked about today? Or even questions about even last Thursday stuff?
We'll be going around, I think.
Yeah.
With any of the crypto stuff.
Yes.
Last week. CryptoHack, maybe.
Yeah.
You want to do that?
All right.
All
Cool.
right. Hello.
Announcements.
Hi, Jim. Okay, so that was the meeting on Crypto 2. Our next 2 meetings coming up, switching around. Again, apologies. So Thursday, we have a meeting on OPSEC, which is operational security. Kind of the taglines of that are don't get hacked, don't get embarrassed, and don't get caught. So if you want to learn how to secure your own personal digital life, make sure that what you're doing is the most secure, come to that meeting. It's going to be really interactive, which means you'll all be doing things. Everyone here will be doing things, and we'll be giving you points for doing things. So stuff like locking down your Venmo account. It's really easy, like no super technical skill there. Then next, that's not next Thursday, that's Sunday. I will fix that for the website. On Sunday, we will be doing a crash course on security law and ethics. So that's everything from the CFAA, basically how not to the Bible of law in computer security. So how not to get arrested, to how to ethically report vulnerabilities, kind of just everything around that. So we're going to do a crash course in that. So that's the plan. Again, thank you so much for coming. This is a seminar, so we'll probably stick around for a little bit if you want to work on challenges. but ultimately, you know, work on them whenever you feel like it. So we'll probably stick around until the hour. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording. I'm gonna stop the share. And I'm gonna stop.